Do you feel sometimes like if there was a state of existence where you did not have to love someone or to get love from someone, how wonderful it would be? I see a lot of people who come to me after one or two breakups, three, four failed marriages, and tell me that do something to me, that I do not need love, that I do not need this achievement or neediness, as they commonly describe as, from other people, so that I can, exist peacefully. Although I understand what they are wanting to say, how they are feeling, what they are going through, and how we reach to that state where we feel like we do not need love anymore, we do not need any person, we do not need attachment. In this podcast, I'm going to explore about how evolution shaped us for love. Hi, I'm Chumki Bose and I'm a senior psychologist at Mindtribe. Leslie Bakers, a psychologist, called love as sometimes the longing for a partner that can be so strong it seems irrational. If we look at what human beings are evolved to be, though, that longing makes perfect sense. We became what we are through love. What kind of relationships did human beings evolve for? Charles Darwin's theory of evolution talks of survival of the fittest, but fitness, in Darwin's terms, doesn't mean the strongest, the fastest, or the best. It means the best adapted to their particular environment. If there's nothing to eat but bamboo leaves, a speedy kung fu panda running around wasting energy is likely to survive than the slow one that sits tight and makes those meals count. So what, in human terms, are we best adapted to? And why do we long for love? The first and foremost of all human survival skills is sustaining relationships. You were born as a human being. You had your parents, you had that relationship with your parents. If you did not have any relationship with them, you were not given food, you were not given comfort, you would rather not survive. Some animals are ready to run within minutes of being born. We humans are born helpless and need care from parent figure to survive our early years. But babies are demanding and exhausting, as any mother can tell you, and a mother needs motivation to do that if she is going to do that much of work. The reward for all that toil is love from the child. As Bowlby, the British psychologist and psychoanalyst, father of attachment theory, which we'll look at later, put it in 1957, said babies' smiles are powerful things, leaving mothers spellbound and enslaved. Who can doubt that the baby who most readily rewards his mother with a smile is the one who is best loved and best cared for? Well-nurtured babies flourish, but lack of nurture is harmful, even when we are clean and fed. A study in the 1940s, for instance, found that more than a third of children raised in an orphanage died before their second birthday, not from starvation or exposure, but from a fundamental failure to thrive, the lack of growth associated with limited snuggling, play, and attention. How do we get from this attachment phase of childhood to the romantic attachment phase of adulthood? What does all this have to do with romantic love? The answer is simple. We may grow out of babyhood, but we never lose our innate need for connection. Never, ever. We simply transfer our attachment from our primary caretaker, which is our parents, to a new base if we can find one. And for most of us, that's a romantic partner. Falling in love along with becoming a parent are the two major neuromodulators of life, literally reshaping our brains. Just as a nurturing parent can make a contented baby, so a healthy, loving, romantic relationship can make us happier, more confident, and even, we'll see later, more independent. The evolution of love goes this way. In nature, Only about 5% of mammals are monogamous. The rest scatter their genes as widely as possible. Even our closest relations, chimps, are aggressive, promiscuous, rather sexist. The males leave all the infant rearing to the females. There is a difference though. The human brain has, in the least 2.5 million years, tripled in size to deal with our increasingly complex societies, communication tools, and to find and keep love. We have had to get smarter since the earliest cave-dwelling hunter-gatherers. Big brains mean big heads. Human babies are born very early by mammalian standards. A baby giraffe is able to walk a few minutes after birth, while human babies are pretty much helpless and are unable to do anything, literally anything by themselves. Caring for such a change is a big job. Babies take a lot of work. Some scientists even argue that we rose from knuckle-walking primates to bipedal humans with 2 legs that walk on legs, so that our men could free up their arms to carry provisions for the young ones. Infants with bonded parents survive to have infants of their own. Not all humans are monogamous, of course, but even open marriages tend to depend on a central primary bond. We need to work together to survive. We are a social species because nothing but a deep bond of love keeps us together when we need it most. Back in our infancy, and way back in the infancy of the human species, of course, we can be emotionally healthy without a relationship. In fact, being able to cope alone is one of the best markers of a stable emotional life, but there's nothing irrational about wanting one. Biologically speaking, we are all created for love. It is our nature to nurture and be nurtured, says Bruce Perry, a psychiatrist. Our ideas of romance and relationships haven't always overlapped. The oldest marriage document in the world is 2,500 years old and records a 14-year-old girl in Egypt being traded as a bride in exchange for 6 cows. Meanwhile, the ancient Greeks had at least 4 different words for love, none of which covered romance. Agape for spiritual love, eros, physical desire, philia, fond regard, and storge, family affection. The concept of romantic love first appears in the medieval tales of chivalry and courtly love, which later gave rise to the novel. Only in modern psychology have we made the link between our earliest childhood experiences and our longing for romance. Marco Giacoboni, professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences, UCLA, says, "We are not alone, but are biologically wired and evolutionarily designed to be deeply connected to one another. Love is irreplaceable. The need for an intimate and very close connection and the romantic need for marriage and love are irreplaceable." More on this in my next podcast. Thank you.